Well, hello! Tonight I'm going to start with what was originally just going to be a little pen restoration I was going to do by myself, just as a distraction from work. And I got the pen disassembled and I thought, this is something I need to share. So I'm going to share it kind of in progress instead of as a true first impression. So what I'm about to present to you is a Svanström's fountain pen. This will be half first impression, which, spoilers, is actually a pretty good pen, and Swedish. And I'm also going to show you one technique for heat setting a feed to a nib. I will just mention that doing this kind of work can damage your pen forever, so as always, go into it with caution and maybe learn how to do it on a pen you don't like as much or lower cost, like a Noodler's or something, because they have ebonite feeds, and I don't recommend this on a plastic feed because I don't know that it does much good. There are people that tell me you can heat set plastic nibs, but I don't seem to read much about it. So anyway, without further ado, let's dive into the pen. Well, hello. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. This is one of those videos I did not expect to record tonight. I was just going to fix a pen. And once I got it apart, I thought, well, this could be fun. So you didn't get to see the before. So I'm going to focus on one thing. I'm going to do some heat setting because I discovered that this feed was not properly heat set to the nib. So a little bit more to the feed than some of them. The nib is one of those generic warranted nibs. The pen is special though. This is a Svanström's Royal pen. You'll get to see it all in the flesh in a bit. But when I say Svanström's Royal pen, this is actually a Swedish pen. The Svanströms apparently still exists as a stationery chain in Sweden, but most of these pens were imports, and from what I read, although you'll notice there's no bibliography to this, sounds like Conway Stewart. So the rest of the pen, I had to clean some ink out. It wasn't bad. It just, needed a little cleaning. And we'll find out if it even draws water after we get this little process done. So I'm going to heat set the nib. I've seen videos where they'll just plunge the pen into hot water, which is awesome, unless you've got a celluloid finish. Now, I don't know what this pen's made out of, but I'd prefer not to risk it. So I preheated some water in the microwave, so I'm just going to let the nib soften up for a minute. I realized I need cold water if I'm going to test the seal on the pen. So anyway, I've seen people just plunge the pen nib first into hot water. Maybe with more modern, like a Noodler's, that's what I've seen it demonstrated on. Kind of scared to do that. I have also seen, I think it was Nathan Tardif, would heat the feed right over an open flame, and I just like, So this is my little technique that I've developed. Because it's hot water, I brought a sink, not a sink in, everything but the kitchen sink, it feels like. A fork in. Gosh darn, why is that word so hard? So I'm going to just push it back into place. And while this nib remains soft and pliable, we'll just fit it a little bit better to the nib if possible. You do want to have fairly hot water to do this. See, now I'm doing what I said not to do, but I'm not putting the pen in. I'm just putting the more recalcitrant part of the feed. And maybe I should have left it in longer. Water had a chance to cool off in here in the living room. So what I'm trying to avoid is too much of a gap between the nib and feed, like you see there, because there's lots of gap there. So I'm about ready to resort to technique number 2, which is get hotter water. So this has been sitting here for a little while, so we'll be back. The super ultra last resort is that I heat it over in boiling water. But this is water I just heated in the microwave for video purposes. So we'll just let it heat up a little bit here. Alright, so we'll pull it out. And of course, me gesturing with it and all that may have been a problem too. Now, I've got to remember as I looked at the feed there, it is going to have gaps around it. So it's not going to be perfect. There. Oh yeah, much better fit. And all I'm doing is just kind of pressing it against the nib. So I think I can live with that. So let's set this very hot water and fork aside. And before I ink it up and show it off, we got to do an important test. I had a pen recently fail this test. We got to make sure I can actually pull in ink. So there may have been a little time passed there through the magic of editing. So it bubbles. And of course, water's clear. We got a lovely tank full of water there. And it's not doing too badly about splashing and leaking. I am finding apparently there was some more ink in there that I didn't clean out. So let's do that one or two more times. But anyway, I've got high hopes for this pen. So now that I've shown you one technique for heat setting a nib, let's actually take a look at the pen, because it's a pen channel. Alright, so I'm going to screw everything back together. I just felt like tonight I needed something non-school related where I was successful. Has not been a fun few weeks at school. Just things going on. So this is my release sometimes. We all need our releases. That's why we have hobbies. So this is a Svanström's Royal. Like I said, this is probably an imported Conway Stewart. Not Conway Twitty. It almost seems like the parts are mismatched, but I can live with that. My restoration, I usually don't worry about the micro scratches and buffing and polishing and all that. I just enjoy them as they are. But here we go. Svanström's Royal Pen import. I guess they did make a few gold nibs, or at least they were gold nibs made in Sweden. I also think that this nib at some point was bent and then straightened. It is a 14 karat gold nib. The tines look just slightly misaligned. So we may have to do a little straightening. You just kind of take your... Oh, they just want to go crooked, don't they? Anyway, it's a little bit of a process. You take your fingernail or your finger and just kind of gently tease it. But now that I've... Whoops. Now I've just lost you. Oh, God. All right. I think I just figured out why sometimes they seem to freeze on this camera. We won't talk about why, but I feel stupid all of a sudden. All right, so let's do something wild. Let's ink it up with some Parker Quink washable blue. That's a good Swedish ink, isn't it? Oh, I don't know how to show you this. I just happened to notice... No, you can't tell it in the way it's lit. When I had the light behind it, I could see like clearness through the threads, which was kind of neat. Neat. Oh. Why is nothing happening? So we get some bubbles again. A nice mouthful. Oh yeah. Nice snootful of Parker Quink washable blue. We'll just go with that much. I think that's enough because it's full. Yeah, hold it upside down. I'm still not seeing ink windows, so that puppy's full. I have no idea what a date would be for this pen. It could be from the 30s on. Well, on. Hopefully any of my Swedish listeners will forgive my mispronouncing the name of this pen. And if I accidentally misspell it here in just a second. Swedish isn't my first, second, or third, or anywhere on my list of languages that I know anything about. I know people from Sweden speak it. So this is my Svanström's Royal pen. A little give in the nib. It's not the flexiest thing I've ever used. It's on the wet side, but not bad. The ink in it, of course, is Parker Quink washable blue, like any of my first impressions. So as far as flex, for as worried as as worried as I was about whether this nib was misaligned, I think it's actually writing pretty smoothly. So enough line variation to be fun, but not huge amounts. Some of these warranted nibs are kind of like that, so I'm pretty pleased with that so far. Wetness and flow, I think you can already tell this is a wet one. It'll be interesting to try some other inks in it. I have to be careful because I get my viewers yelling at me if I use anything too exotic in a vintage pen. But yeah, that's pretty wet. A smear test, which now that I'm using basically the same ink every time is a little bit more consistent. We can't control my consistency of how I handle it on the paper, but yeah. Reverse writing, that should be interesting because it is a nib that I believe has been bent. In fact, now that I think back, that's not bad at all. Now that I think back, I want to say that if you look at my photographs that I took before I started heat setting and everything, back when I thought I was grabbing I just wanted a quick win tonight. The feed and the nib were definitely not aligned. They're slightly out of alignment right now, but nothing too bad. And it's writing just fine, so why argue with success? And of course, the world-famous Peer Gustafson test. And passed that one with flying colors. And that's kind of a relief because the last few weeks, my even my vintage pens haven't been passing that test. It's been kind of a letdown. So that was a little bit different. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to title this as part of my repair series or part of my first impressions. But I thought it was kind of fun to get the chance to repair a pen. This was a pretty easy win for me. I had to do a little cleaning, and then turned out I had to do a little more cleaning. At first, what I thought was just a misaligned nib and feed turned out to be a little bit more. It involved heat setting. Basically, the gap between the nib and the feed were like, wah, and I wanted to make it more like, wah. Okay, let's put a feed up here. We'll pretend this is a feed. I wanted to make it more like, wah, instead of, wah. So, that's what I did. And as you saw, the results turned out pretty well. Now, generally, I've been filming these where I wait at least a few days to do my commentary, but as you can see, I'm wearing the same shirt I was wearing when I was doing the repair work, and yeah, so this is a same night feeling, but you know what? I think I'm ready to go tackle doing some schoolwork now because I'm feeling revived, and maybe I'll correct the schoolwork with this new pen that I've restored. So yeah, part of the fun for me, and I think what drove me down this rabbit hole of vintage pens is you don't get them working perfectly. They usually take work. You know, I've said a lot of good things about proto pens that used to be known as my Uber pens because they do a very excellent job of restoring pens, and kudos to them. And I have gotten some very nice pens from them for, you know, I've spent way too much money at their store, especially for a teacher. But there's a certain satisfaction in doing some work yourself. And I'll just tell you, $25 pen, because I looked up the eBay thing, this was from 2 years ago, $25 pen. I don't usually give prices, but I was just like, seriously, that's all I paid? Okay, $10 shipping, but still, $35. For a gold nib pen with an ebonite feed, piston filler. I think I came off pretty well, so I'm pretty happy with it. So, anyway, I want to thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.